There are about 270 fresh applications for private universities in Nigeria. You know, when I read this story, the first thing that came to mind is when it comes to standard of education in Nigeria, is it about, quality or quantity? Now, we find ourselves in a situation where presently number of universities in the country is about 528. And now if you add this to it, that's going to be like, something big. So Nigeria presently has about 258 universities. By the time you add this one, the number is going to increase. What do you think maybe your thought or your counsel can shape, the decision the federal government is going to make in this regard? Because they are fresh applications. And so the federal government is considering what to do. It's reviewing it to see if these applications will be granted or not. You are the wise man here. You are in position to shape the policy, which is the essence of this program. It's your turn.
Yeah, I really will wish the regulators, that is to say NUC, had to be a lot more strategic in terms of granting licenses to people to establish universities. Two things are critically involved. Yeah, we have a large population of about 260 million as projected. And then, of course, you have institutions and the current enrollment figures in these institutions stay very, very small compared to the size of your population. Yeah, but that notwithstanding, I do honestly believe that it's not more universities that we need. And except that these applications that are coming are designed strategically to address the gaps that currently exist in the society, as it were. That is to say, they are going to be building some level of human capital based on emerging skills and technology. Then it will be welcome. If it is just to issue certificates like others are doing, I am sorry, and I don't think that's what we need at the moment. The second factor is the factor of funding. Most of the private universities we talk about, except maybe about 2, 3, or 4 of them, are glorified secondary schools. So it's not just enough to say, oh, I have university, I have university, I have university. You must have enough fund to drive it. And that's why when you look at the ranking of university, even as we speak, apart from 5 to 6 private universities, in the league of the first 20 or 30, you don't see these universities that they talk about. So all we are doing is we are just churning out people without regard to solving societal problems. Some years ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with the Director of Communication, NUC, and we're having the same conversation. And he said to me, oh, the future of education in Nigeria is in the private university, because if you look at what they are doing and the rest of it, and I was asking, is it more graduates we really need? Because there's some level of mix-up, even at that level, that people are thinking that because you're having plenty applications and only very few are taken, you need to build more universities so that you can accommodate every application, whether they are qualified or not qualified. But that's where in the world people are really concerned about skills, what people can learn. Some places in Europe, you see the ratio of like 20, 50 polytechnic graduates to 1 university graduate. Because if everybody is manager, who is going to build or put the hands to work to do the construction? This is the scenario that we have found ourselves. We have given certificate to a lot of people who would have been better off with handwork. And now they feel because there's a paper in their hand, even though they really don't have any competence or skills, they just feel that they have to be employed in a white-collar job. And what do we see? The real critical area where we need good hands, they seem lacking. So some people who should have been at the farm doing excellently well, or doing artisan jobs and making money and earning a living, are on the streets looking for white-collar job that does not exist. And I feel very honestly that we should be able to do things in such a way that we look at what are the industry needs for graduates. We need to do that baseline survey so we know how many graduates that are needed. And if it's going to increase, we should be able to project and say by what percentage, for example, is the graduate need going to increase by next year. Just as we are projecting every other data, we can do that scientifically. And that gives us a kind of an understanding of the human resource need of our environment, so that we will not be producing graduates that will not be engaged. And I don't think that is good enough for the nation. And finally, I feel that education should not just be about money making, because a lot of people see that there's opportunity in this area, so let's go and make money. I think it must get beyond acquiring or getting money. Rather, it should be functional to the extent that it can address societal problems.
Let's look at the statistics. You have in Nigeria presently 258 universities, 50 federal universities, 60 state-owned, and 148 privately owned. What are we looking for? 270 fresh applications. I'm wondering where these applications are coming from, if they are from private, if they're from individuals or private organizations, or it's just about the need for us to say, okay, we have university. Like you said, what kind of problem is this university going to solve that the existing ones are not even looking at? You know, there's been this issue between the federal government and the ASU about funding of education, research. You know, universities are there. It's just not just creating the universities, but there's a need to fund them. Most state universities now, they are owing salaries, you know, not to even talk about federal. And now when you now add more universities to it, it means you have more burden, you know. Let's look at the fact that they are private universities, but there are also concerns to want to start or float a university now. It's capital intensive, and to even sustain it, it's just not about starting, it's to sustain it. Now, looking at these statistics, I would like you to talk about what are the ways that which even state-owned universities that are struggling. Some of them are depending on some version from the state government. We talked about IGR recently, whereby the federal government wanted to have 40% deduction from the IGR, and then they had to backtrack that decision. But what do you think universities should start working on when it comes to the issue of funding research, you know, and some of the developmental works? How can they overcome this obstacle?
Well, I think they are solvable. A friend of mine had told me once that, you see, if you go to a place like Japan, you have multiplicity over 600 universities. But the difference is the fact that these universities are very strategic. You could have a university that all they do is just to produce brake-pad engineers that solve brake-pad issues.
Specialized universities.
Specialized universities. And I think that's what we actually should be looking out for. We should look out for specialized universities. I don't have a problem with having up to 300, 400, 500, even 1,000 universities. But my real challenge is that they should not be conventional universities. in the first place. Now, if they are not conventional university and they are very specialized university that is targeting a particular societal problem that's emerging, and that's where research and endeavor is focused, then it will make a lot of sense. But if it's going to be this same universal conventional way, everybody producing accountants, everybody producing lawyers, everybody producing political science, everybody producing mass comm, this will not be healthy for the nation. That's the point. But if the university are specialized, you would know that the applicants who are going in there are going in there not just because they need to have a certificate. It will be because they have a passion in certain societal problem that they feel that they are compelled by nature to solve. And then you can bring value to society. In that case, they will be able to actually pay for that education, one. Number two, because it's also research driven, there will be a lot of partnership between the universities and the industries who need those experts. And they can set up chairs in these universities that reduces the burden of funding from the owners of the universities. So that's the way to go. But for the state-owned and the federal-owned university, I think there should be a full and final full stop to building any state university or building any federal university. Recently, I came from Kigali and I was asking one of the professors in the university, and I said, how many federal universities do you have in Kigali? He said there's only one federal university in Kigali, and that's the University of Rwanda.
Interesting.
And that University of Rwanda had multiplicity of campuses.
Study centers.
Yes, they are colleges. So you see, College of Education will be in one region, College of Medicine in another region, College of Agric in another region, College of Engineering in another region, just like that. And therefore, they are all spread through the entire government of Rwanda. But they all offer and certify everybody have the certificate graduated from the University of Rwanda. And I think that's more strategic than just building institutions everywhere.
But if you look at the population of Rwanda compared to that of Nigeria, isn't that something to
No. It's not about population. The question here is not population. The question here is the strategy.
How strategic it is, yeah.
Yeah, what you are producing. I once went to one polytechnic in Nigeria here where they are studying political science in the polytechnic. That's an aberration. That's an aberration. So this is the issue. So if you have polytechnic are supposed to be producing technical people. They are studying accounting, they are doing business administration, the same course that they are doing in the university. And what do you find? And this is why you are seeing people are having this conversation. Should we treat the same qualification from university and the one from polytechnic the same? Because there's no strategy. That's what I'm saying. If there's a need to have a spread, you can actually have 36 colleges. I mean, College of Nursing is in Maiduguri. College of Pharmacy is in Owerri. So all these things, but one university can spread across and still will be able to accommodate children. Now, but what you will see is that the university system, all the resources that is coming in there, will be dedicated to solving one problem, not many problems, as we currently do today.
There's this statistics that show that the collection or tax collection rate, Nigeria has one of the lowest tax collection rates in the world. And the figures is about 10.8%. If you look at the GDP ratio tax to GDP ratio is about 10.8%. And now the chairman of the commission, the revenue who's in charge, the FRS, is saying that there's a plan to raise it to 18% in the next 3 years. Recently, you're aware that the president constituted a tax reform committee whereby they've been going the length and breadth of Nigeria to see how they can harmonize our tax laws, the bottleneck, to see what can be done. Let me take the conversation to Idahosa now. The plan to raise the tax rate to GDP ratio to 18% in the next 3 years. Do you think that is reasonable? Has been considered by?
As a matter of fact, I think it's possible, and we can actually surpass that figure if the right things are done to actually broaden the tax net. That advocacy has always been there, and I think that is really why Oyedele was asked to be appointed to look at that issue, because he has always advocated that we don't need more tax. All we need is to ensure that the tax net takes a whole lot of people. And we have plenty of conversations around our place, and a lot of people feel that, oh, it's not worthy to pay tax because you don't even know what government is doing with the tax. Some people are advocating that you just pay your tax and they are sharing it. And so there's a whole lot of tax evasion in our society. So only a very few, especially those who are in formal employment, that actually pay. There are a whole lot of companies, of course, who are doing businesses here and they are making profit and they are not remitting these taxes to government. So if government can put a whole lot of technology in place to be able to track what is going on in the environment, all the business activity that is going on in the environment, because there's a whole lot happening here. The tax to GDP ratio can actually go beyond 18%. But how we're going to structure that, I think that is the challenge that is before the Revenue Commission. But Lagos did something some years ago which was very fundamental. If you are not paying tax in Lagos, it's not very difficult for you to be caught. Because, number one, if your child wants to get into the university, they will ask you, or any Lagos public school, you have to bring your tax clearance. If you commit traffic offense and you have to pay, you have to put your your tax clearance. And by this, some people have to pay because, of course, though so many people are still evading tax, but at least majority of people have been able to be captured because of these conversations and interactions we're having with government. But if these are digitized, where, of course, every taxpayer is known, their addresses, where they live, their telephone contacts, it will be very easy for government to be able to track where people are and see whether they are complying with the tax laws or not. But for me, it's just to see how we can use technology the more to drive the process and ensure that all those who are supposed to pay tax are paying tax. But we're going to say to Nigerians that, yes, our government may not be able to do so much, and the real reason is because we are not paying tax. If we are paying tax and there's money in the hand of the government, there's more they can do than we currently see. And I think that is why it is important for each and every one of us that as we have rights, so we also have obligations. And therefore, if you don't do your obligations, you may not be entitled to any right.
Yes, if you don't do your obligation, you also cannot request that your rights are given, because yes, you must ensure that you've done your own bit, and then you're demanding that government use the money judiciously. But I think that the reason we have that poor ratio between the GDP and the gap between the tax paid and the GDP ratio is because there's a lot of tax leakages, particularly in the informal sector. I even think that those in the informal sector comply more with tax payments because the local governments are closer to them, and the local governments have a way of ensuring that if you do business outside of your house, even inside of your house, if we are aware, you pay the tax. But because a lot of agents are used to collect these taxes, the layers before it gets back to government are so much that a lot of the revenue are lost on the way before it eventually gets to government. How we can digitize that of the informal sector, I do not know if there's a way to work around it, but I know that it can be possible where every agent that will collect tax is an employee of government, maybe an ad hoc staff or something, so that it is easy to trace than contracting to persons who will use people on the streets that you do not even know them. So that way it reflects more what is being paid into government coffers or paid to government.
I think another thing that it can be also done is that if government services are all available digitally, and you also have an agency who collects on behalf of government, it's very easy. Again, I go back to Rwanda. There's an institution that partners government and the private sector company who take revenue on behalf of the Rwanda government. They call them Irembo. All the licenses that you use in doing business is issued by them. And so you can actually access government service through their portal. So as you pass it through their portal, on a daily basis, they capture you. Even those who are doing transactions via mobile phones, they're also captured. And so it's difficult for you to actually be there, and government cannot see where you are or know what to do. So in this way, people will be able to comply. You just imagine that if you drive a motorbike, which we call Okada here in Rwanda, and you want to pay, you don't need to be looking for cash in your hand. It's just from phone to phone, and you don't need data to do that. USSD code does that. So all these things have been done, and that's why I'm saying that there's a way you can actually put technology in place and ensure that everybody is doing business. That even anybody who's going to sell have to be certified to do business, really. Now, if people are in the informal sector and they are not certified, and you want to capture them, then of course you see them to say, okay, you are doing business, you are going to sell something in society. Let the government be sure that they know where you are, that this business will not be hurtful to human beings. And then once we can capture those base data, then subsequently you will be able to know. And this is why you see, for example, if you go to the UAE, licenses are done every year, not on 5-year or once in a lifetime basis. So every year you come to renew. And as you are renewing, then of course government will be able to know your performance in the last 1 year and see what license is coming. So nations are using all manners of approaches to ensure that they widen their tax base and not taxing more. That's why you can see, for example, in the UAE, up till late last year, there were no corporate tax in UAE, not even payee. That's a surprise. And that's how is the government of UAE functioning. Right. So, but then they are functioning because it's not about more taxes, it's about effectiveness in terms of collection. And once we can put that in place, and I think we can maximize a lot.
All right, let's see how Dr. Adedeji intends to widen the tax net and then perhaps hit this target if possible for the next 3 years. Let's wrap up with this story from NNPC, which says the company is aiming for a significant profit of 2 trillion in its 2023 operations. You know, the Kyari revealed that there's plan for the supply of petrol, especially PMS, ensuring sufficient availability beyond ember months and into the new year. You know, it's usually like a custom towards the end of the year, you have artificial scarcity of petrol. Whether that is man-made, of course it's man-made. Whether that is planned or pre-planned or not even planned, it's usually the practice towards the end of the year. But the NNPC boss is saying that they intend to hit the target of 2 trillion naira in their operations and to ensure that during this or as we approach the festive period, there won't be scarcity of petrol. That was quickly, let me have your take.
I am interested to hear that NNPC is about to make profits. and that's so heartwarming. Such a profitable organization that has run over the years with zero profits and no contribution to the national economy, even when we know that our heart and our soul is actually in this industry. And it says a volume for me that we can make 2 trillion from NNPC as profit. That's heartwarming. And then, of course, they've actually said that this period there will be no scarcity. A lot has been imported by NNPC. And like I've said some time ago on this program, we're also expecting that the private players that are coming into the industry are actually going to also support this thing, so that the cabal in that industry, who actually uses supply tactic to generate artificial scarcity to make more money, at least that will not be there. So if you see competition happen, and I think this is why a lot of people are talking about allowing businesses to thrive, that you are not putting a gag on competition. Now, if there's competition, people will sit up. Now, you can imagine that Dangote refinery come on stream, and a lot will be taken away from NNPC, and so they need to keep their job. So they have to assure us that they are still relevant. Otherwise, it will look like it happened in Venezuela. You remember some years ago in Venezuela, their national oil company went on strike for 2 years. And then their president woke up one morning and said, if 2 years you have been on strike and nothing has happened, it means you are not useful. And converted their complex to a university. So I pray that don't happen here. So it's good to hear that NNPC is about to make profit, and we hope that this will continue.
That's actually breaking news, because for a while it's been no profit. We hear of crude swap and different reasons why they're not making profit. So it will be good, at least 2 trillion. That's some money coming in. Well, for the assurance that they're given, I don't think it's something that we can hold. It feels like air in the hand that you can't actually hold, because it's not the first time that NNPC will actually be assuring us during the festive season that, oh, we have enough. They've always said that year after year. But still we'll find that there are fierce scarcity during the UTAD. The problem really lies with the filling station owners, because when they go to the depots, what you hear is that the independent marketers sometimes, or those who are not in the list of certain marketers, do not get fuel in certain quantities. So maybe it's just little given to them, and they too want to make profit. So you find the hoarding happening, and also the increase in the price. So that's where the issue actually comes from. So if the regulatory authority can actually ensure that, since NNPC has said there is enough available, then there should be no reason why a fuel station should close up and say they don't have fuel. So they should, I think the monitoring should start from the depots. Where they load fuel from.
Yeah, but I think a whole lot happens around speculation and anticipation, either of price increase. Yeah, but you see, what we had now is not just the profit aspect. They also had said that importation of fuel is going to stop in 2024.
When in 2024? At the end of 2024?
Yeah, the importation of fuel will be last in 2024, because after 2024, Nigeria is expected to be able to produce the kind of petrol that it needs, and that competition is being actually strengthened. But the good news is that there are about 18 vessels that has arrived that are currently being offloaded. So this means that, of course, we will have abundance. There's no way we will be able to exhaust what has come in, because it's when you are not having the capacity to actually bring in products that has been the problem, which of course is what the president did when he said subsidy is gone, no more swap. So NNPC were handicapped by the crude petrol swap, but now there's no swap. So at least you are receiving revenue, and it is easier for you to actually invest those revenue in terms of buying products, and then you are able. So, but those era where we were doing swap, you see, you look at what you were producing and the quantum that purportedly we were saying we were consuming. You see that after you have given all the crude you produce, you will still need to borrow money to pay the difference in terms of subsidizing the product. And I think all these things has made the NNPCL to be very liquid in terms of cash, and they are doing business, and they are also trying to prove that they are relevant. And because the president says, well, with my regime, nothing to fear as long as we are producing results. But if you are not producing results, you have everything to fear.